Hi, everyone. My name's Michelle Ragus McBain, and I'm the host of Fail Forward Live, also live. And I am here and delighted to be with Nancy Ridge, co founder and president of Ridge Innovative. Also, she sits on the board of two incredible organizations, Aspire to STEAM, which is helping nonprofit for young women and girls who don't really have every advantage so that they can succeed in the tech ecosystem, as well as the Women's Veterans Interactive to help with job skill guidance and helping them achieve their goals. And Nancy is also the founder of Alliance of Channel Women. And so, Nancy, I thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for having me. I'm thrilled to have this discussion with you personally, and hopefully your listeners will benefit from some of the things that we're so eager to share.
I love that. Now, for anyone who doesn't know about some of the nonprofits and what you do, I would love for you to take a minute and walk them through because these are three of your biggest passions. So, if you
Yes.
could take a minute to tell us what they are and a little bit
Okay.
more about how people could learn about them, that would be great.
Well, I think, the obvious one is the Alliance of Channel Women, and they have done a great job. The subsequent boards have done a fantastic job of really making the Alliance of Channel Women known in the tech space. And I'm super proud of, everything that they've done. But our primary focus at the Alliance of Channel Women is to foster female leaders in tech to get together to work with each other to grow their businesses. I like to call it co-opetition. We may be technically competitors on paper, but there's so much abundance. I think if we come together as women in tech, we can always find ways to grow our businesses together. But also, it's really important to support each other as women in a male dominated industry. And we've had a great deal more focus. I'm so grateful for that with the ACC Council, which I do get to be part of with you as well, where we are really promoting gender equality, inclusion, and diversity. And ACW has had a history of being focused on that from day one. And last but not least, mentoring is a big part of the organization, really just not just mentoring young women into tech, but also mentoring each other as we continue to learn and grow. So that's ACW, and they are fabulous. Allianceofchannelwomen.org is how you find them. Aspire to STEAM is an organization that I've only been directly involved in for a little less than a year. It was founded by Cheryl O'Donoghue, who's a good friend of mine and an expert in the field of emotional intelligence. And she has a passion for young women as well and for mentorship. And Aspire to STEAM is in some ways really unique because it seeks to provide the scholarships and the mentoring to young women and girls who may be faced with barriers, who have in fact faced barriers to achieving training and education. And we call it not just STEM, but STEAM. We've added the arts into it as well because we see that as being part of the whole picture. And part of why I love this organization is because they don't overlook the promising young women and girls who may not necessarily be noticed right away. They may not have the highest grades, in their classes or all the accolades or successes. And that could be because of their life circumstances. Maybe they're working as well as going to school. Maybe they've got siblings that they need to take care of, but they have that desire and that promise. And so the scholarships and the mentorship is what we provide. And then last but not least, and you're so right, I am passionate about these organizations.
I
And this is actually me shortening my conversation about them.
love
is the Women Veterans Interactive, which is founded by Ginger Miller, who is just an amazing individual. And her story is that she became homeless when she was discharged from service. And she raised a son as a single mom. And she saw a need as she was able to overcome those obstacles for herself. She saw a need, so she started WVI, and today it's become a powerhouse organization, gaining support, hopefully from the West Wing as well as the East Wing, to really put the focus on female veterans and their special needs. But we're addressing core issues, honestly, Michelle, like homelessness. You'd be amazed at how much of that happens. Joblessness, finding those career opportunities, transitioning into civilian life with the skills they've learned in the military. And so it is an amazing organization. They too have a website, womensveteransinteractive.org. So I could talk all day about those
Oh my
groups.
gosh, so powerful. And thank you to Ginger and all the veterans. I think it's absolutely critical that we help give back philanthropically and for all that they do so selflessly. I remember this story about a friend that I have who was in the Army for 19 years. She and her husband, she gave birth to a child, she was stationed actually in Iraq and Afghanistan for the first 2 years of his life. And he thought mommy lived on the iPad. So for the sacrifice
Um,
you give, we appreciate it sincerely. And I'm so thankful. And also, you and I have spoken offline. We know that you and I feel like we're in this place because of a lot of mentorship that we have been gifted. I grew up in very similar circumstances with you in a lot of ways, but I was not meant to be here, and I'm grateful that I am. And so, any girl out there listening to this podcast, please know that there's a place for you in technology, and we're so happy to help mentor you in this journey.
and so many resources. Just reach out to us. We can help you.
Absolutely. And so I do want to get to my first question, but Ridge Innovative, tell me what you do for anyone who's listening.
Well, Ridge Innovative is a consulting firm. My calling in life is to be of service to people. And so what I like to do is take the experience and the knowledge that I've learned in the technology space to help businesses achieve their outcomes, their desired business outcomes through the use of technology. And in particular, employing all of those innovative technologies and strategies that continue to just accelerate in the time that we live in right now. So I essentially help them address like where are they at now, what would they like to do, and how can we enable that through tech? And then I literally bring the solutions providers to them. I have relationships with over 150 different service providers and assist not only with the selection of who best fits their needs, but also see them through on the project management side and all the way on the back end to make sure that we're measuring the outcomes. So that's one side of it. The other side is because I've had so much experience and really just wonderful mentorship myself in the area of channel development. I do work with organizations on leadership and channel development as well. And that's become a really big part of my business is helping people be successful in the channel, whether you're a service provider, building a channel program, or a sales leader or an operations leader who's looking for ways that you can get better professionally and personally. So those are my two major elements.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nancy. So
Thank
here's my
you.
first question to you. And for all those young girls out there or anyone listening that has sort of taken a lot of forks in the road on their journey, you and I have talked about your career. And looking back, what advice would you give your 21-year-old self if you could tell yourself something today?
Besides get a little more sleep, I would say, the biggest thing would be just to not be in such a hurry. I was in such a big hurry. Take the time to invest in yourself, get that college degree. I never finished and got my college degree, which a lot of people don't know that about me. I got close and then I got excited. I got into the tech world, working for Honeywell, in fact, in the mainframe computer sales division, if you can believe that ages me and dates me. But I was so excited by the business world, and the opportunities that were laid in front of me that I just went after that and I didn't finish really taking the time to develop myself as a person, as an individual. And I would tell, the young girls, do that. See yourself as a leader. I didn't necessarily see myself in that realm at that age. I didn't know that it was possible that I could lead in a technology driven business. But take that time.
I love that. And I'm going to ask this question because it's so personal for me. I am the first in my family to go to college. My family immigrated here. Many of them got vocational degrees. Many of them have started their own businesses. They've done a lot of different things. They've been very successful in other unique ways. But my mom encouraged me. I was the first. She really wanted me to do it. So I really did it for my mom. And I don't know if I would be here or maybe I would. That's the question. I was role reverse. You can't go back in time. Hindsight's 2020. But then I was also
Right.
the first to get my MBA. And I would ask for anyone that's considering, this has been a lot of debate in the news right now. Do people need a college degree or not? What do you think? Did it impact you in a positive or negative way? And would you say, what are the ways that you can overcome challenges if they, or, do come up? So I'm just curious.
That's a really great topic. And I heard some of those debates in the news, and I was really amazed that, they're now out in the open and being had. And I will tell you that my daughter is the first one in our family to get a degree. And I wanted her to have that, and I wanted her to have no college debt, which she didn't. That was part of my personal goal, was to have it for her. So that I consider that one of my greatest accomplishments.
Absolutely.
And bless her heart, she's running with it, doing fantastic. But I remember going to an orientation at her school. She went to Chapman, and there was a professor who'd been there for many years, and he talked about the fact that the college degree. He said, it's a great thing. It's wonderful. Obviously, I'm a tenured professor. This is my life's work. But I can tell you that if you immerse yourself in an industry and a particular area, that it's just going to take longer. You'll get the same skill set,
Mhm.
but instead of, let's say, a 4-year program like she was going into, he said it might take you 7 or 8 years
Mm.
to get to that point. That was his position. And I thought it was interesting because, here I was sitting there, many, many years later, having had a successful career and thinking that I was still at a disadvantage when in his mindset, technically I'd graduated a long time ago. But, I think a lot of it has to do with how I felt about myself. Like, I really believe that if I'd had that opportunity to see it through, that it would have given me some additional confidence that I had to kind of scrape and battle for a little bit more, kind of out there on my own. And it also might have given me some good guidance on working with groups, I think a little bit more, because I had to be so independent in my process. And as we know today, how critical it is, with all the agile and scrum, initiatives that are really driving how companies and people work within organizations together. I think that would have been very beneficial. So I kind of have, my story is different, but I kind of feel like it would be good.
I love it. I love that. Thank you for sharing that personal journey with us. So, the root of this podcast is this, right? And I see incredibly amazing, successful people like yourself every
Mhm.
day. So blessed to know you and learn from you and mentor from you. And I always hear about the successes. I think we celebrate everybody's victories. But so often we don't know about their failures or their stumbling blocks or their journey that took them to where they are today. So, in reflection, what do you think was your biggest failure and what did it teach you and why?
Mhm. I really appreciate, Michelle, that you're taking that direction, because honestly, I think in my life, I've often grown more through the failures than I did through the successes. I know that they seasoned me and my character a lot more. And I would say, the biggest failure was not negotiating an ownership or leadership position for myself in the companies that I wound up building. I had a history of that. I had two before Original Beta, the two previous organizations that I worked for. I came in on the ground floor and pretty much built those businesses. And I didn't have any leg to stand on in terms of ownership or equity or anything like that. And I look at that as, not really having that ability at the time, or even the mindset or the mentoring, to be honest, to know enough to ask for what I deserved. And so it was a hard lesson when I had to walk away, from those organizations without anything and start over all over again.
So, this brings me to a follow on question, which is for anyone thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, which is what you did. And that could be scary in
Mhm.
and of itself. What were, we talk a lot about women, especially and in the imposter syndrome, and we talk about the benefits of women ownership and women leadership. And there's this kind of
Right.
conflict that is at odds with itself, where the businesses that are run or led by women are usually the most successful, have the biggest profitability, have the greatest ROI, and yet women doubt themselves. So, what was the
Yeah.
journey like to start your own company after that?
Well, it was like everything in life, a little bit bittersweet. Like, I have to tell you that it was joyful from the standpoint of I was so excited and so ready, to finally get to this point to think, oh, I get to follow my own heart, my own direction. I don't have to modify my dreams, to suit someone else's vision. And so there was a tremendous amount of joy in that. But at the same time, I had conflict. There was a lot of conflict, both from, the past employer who didn't want to compete with me,
Ah,
you know,
sure. He knew what he was dealing with. He knew you were successful.
and even though, my philosophy is we don't have to compete, right? There's enough abundance out there. And my vision was different. That's why I was leaving in the first place. I didn't want to be what I was before. I wanted to be something new. But I wasn't able to successfully convince, so I was dealing with a lot of conflict.
Mm.
And so there was, I would say, every entrepreneur has that kind of doubt or fear. Am I doing the right thing? What have you. But honestly, I'm really grateful that I have a foundation, and I'll just say like a spiritual foundation that says, nope, I'm going to trust. I'm going to trust that if I am following my heart, being of service to people, doing the footwork, all the boring stuff that nobody wants to do, but that is so important. And, just seeking to each day, wake up and ask, how can I be of service that I'm going to be successful? It might not happen in my timing, but, I only have to be successful today.
Right, of course. Yes, every day comes, in its own right. I use this analogy with somebody I was coaching the other day, and I heard it from somebody once, so I didn't invent it. But they said, if you break one egg, do you throw away the dozen? Or if you get a flat on one tire, do you just get a new car? Yet we hold ourselves to these standards of perfection that we need to
Right.
be the best every single day. And so that for me has been sort of a journey, mentorship, learning how do you understand what people, what mentors or champions you need. I'll tell you this. I thought if I work really hard that they would just notice it and promote me and hire me. And that turned out not to exactly be the case. I mean, it did get me recognition, it did get me awards and achievement, but it didn't necessarily get me the role that I needed or wanted, or
Mhm.
the belief in myself that I can do those things independently of anybody else. And so for you, who was your three biggest mentors in your life, whether
Mm.
family, spiritually, professionally? Who impacted you and why? What were the life lessons or nuggets of wisdom that they imparted on you?
Well, and I appreciate everything you just said and relate to it. I love that. One of them is a woman by the name of Patricia McDade, and she just passed away a couple of years ago. And a lot of people knew her as one of the sisters on an old TV show called Petticoat Junction years ago.
Wow.
You were too young to remember that, but some people will remember it. But anyways, she wound up going into business, like leaving acting and becoming a businesswoman, which was kind of unheard of back in those days, in the late 50s, early 60s.
Sure.
And she became extremely successful. And she had a program that was strictly created for entrepreneurs to help entrepreneurs be successful. And I got to be a part of that program. And it was, she was just so inspiring to me because she tied it all together. She told us that you can have it all.
Mm,
You can have a great life, a full life. You can have success at work. You can have success at home, in your family life, in your community. There's no reason to not look at the whole picture from day one and have that be the vision for yourself. And then she went on to just impart so much practical wisdom that, to this day, I quote her all the time.
I
In
love
fact, one of my favorite lines that she says is accountability lives in transformation. And I love
powerful. I love that too. That is a good one. That's a very
that.
good one. Who were the other two?
Okay, the other one is my current business coach, which by the way, I advocate to everyone, have a coach,
Hmm.
have mentors. They're different. Coaches and mentors serve different roles. And find your sponsors. All of these folks, fill different roles for you. And, I would say, Robert Oppenheimer is my coach, and he's just an amazing guy. I mean, to this day, he helps me like when I really need some practical guidance on, oh my goodness, what do I do in this situation? I can always count on him to give me, incredible advice. And he is kind of who I want to be when I grow up, to be honest.
I love that. I love that. Well,
So,
to say I was in a meeting the other day, and I'm not going to assume that all of the listeners know the difference between
mhm,
a business coach, a mentor, and a sponsor. Could you
mhm.
impart what you think the unique differentiators between those three roles are?
Sure, and I'll be brief. A mentor is someone who really comes alongside you to share kind of their experience and what they've gleaned to help you to be a stand for you. Your mentor is kind of the person in your corner, that you can look up to and that can give you that practical guidance, but at the same time, they're really your biggest cheerleader and your helper in that regard. And they can say, here's the path that I took. Let me take you by the hand and walk you down that path.
Right.
Whereas I see typically a coach is someone by the way that you compensate, where a mentor up, is there's no compensation involved.
Hmm.
And with the coach, it's someone who is usually coming in to work with you on some specific skill sets, whether it's leadership training, management skills, starting a business, operations, what have you. So your coach is that person that you look to for the brass tacks, to really help you there. And a sponsorship is really just a person who is willing to put their own reputation on the line for you, to vouch for you. So, and I would say that that's the third person for me was Dick Jalkut, who was the longtime CEO of TPX. And he played a very strong. He did some mentoring for me as well, but he also acted as a sponsor for me. So Dick was the guy that would vouch for me. In fact, he was our first major sponsor at ACW.
Oh,
So when he put his hard cash on the table, that
that's like
was,
a great goal. Sure.
he essentially fulfilled the role of sponsor because then other corporations were willing because everybody knew him as, a hardcore guy, you
I
know, so.
I love that your first sponsor was a hardcore guy who believed in hardcore ladies. This is awesome to me. Thank you. That's fantastic. And what great life lessons they each shared with you. My other question is how
Mhm.
many, in terms of resources, books you've read,
Mm.
podcasts you listen to,
Mhm.
events that you've attended, what are the places that you soak in to gain inspiration, wisdom, and become successful professionally and personally?
Well, that's a big deal because, that is what this ongoing personal professional development is all about.
Right.
And all three of those individuals that I just mentioned were excellent examples along those lines. And they all encouraged me to never give up on learning and to, continue to seek out those sources. And certainly I am addicted to business books. I've always got two or three going at one time. Now with podcasting, being such a great explosive area for hearing those voices, those influential voices, and gaining information. I love podcasts. So I'm thrilled to be a part of this one. And then, of course, the service providers over the years have offered a lot of great certification and training programs on the technical side,
Mm,
which has helped a lot. So one of the things that I always tell people that I'm working with on a coaching or leadership perspective is to be very intentional about that, to create space in your calendar that you actually put down that I'm going to do some learning. That's how I call it, learning time.
I love
And I slot in a minimum of 2 hours a week that I'm going to be learning in some format or another. And even as we speak, I've got two certification programs I'm working on right now, and about three books, and listening to podcasts all the time. And now there's audiobooks too. So,
Yes, yes, I do that. I try to combine things. So I like to run. I don't like to run, but I need to run. While I do that, I listen to Audible, and I'll listen to TED Talks, or I listen to Audible, or I listen to podcasts, and I find it's the greatest way to both release the energy, get the endorphins, focus my mind, and also learn along the way. So I've kind of combined things with limited time with a 7 and 5 year old in the house.
oh my gosh. Yes, you moms. My hat's off to you.
Likewise. So here is, for all of the women and girls that are thinking, they're in junior high school or high school, we've seen this happen. I'm very passionate about women in technology. You're very passionate about it. There's not only been a stagnation of women entering careers in tech, but a
Mhm,
decline
mhm,
over the last 10 years. And over the pandemic, a quarter of women, 1 in 4, left the field
mhm,
of technology. What
mhm.
misconceptions for the young girls out there could you give us for them to say, like, technology is great for a lot of reasons. Why would they want to pursue a career in technology?
Well, I mean, really, technology is everything today. I mean, it touches so many aspects of our lives. So, choosing to follow a career in tech really gives you a very broad scope in which to operate. It's not pigeonholed, and one of the things that we have always tried to impart as we were going into schools, because that's something ACW did in the beginning as well, was we went into schools to try to mentor younger girls into tech, is we would try to really eliminate that old stereotype of it's just a programmer in a computer room, by themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that by any means. I mean, a lot of people find a lot of creativity and satisfaction doing that, and we need more coders,
Right.
no question about it. But that's not the breadth of being in technology. So, what I tell them is, really be clear about what you want. Look at, once again, find out who you are first. Develop your emotional intelligence. Do some of the assessments that are out there to learn about what your strengths are, what areas that you can build on, your superpowers,
Yes.
as my friend Cheryl O'Donoghue and I have learned to call them. She's taught me. And, get a mentor. If you have the slightest interest in a particular aspect of it, reach out and find a woman who's done that or who's doing it and learn a little bit more about her journey and what it took so that you can make that correct choice and then just dive in. And I would say regardless, for any young person, you want to learn about business, the basics of business, because, tech is there to enable our lives. That's really why it's there, right? It's not there in and of itself. It's not the ends to the means. So, by learning and understanding a little bit more about business, that will open the door to really make tech come alive, not only in your minds and in your creative side, but also in terms of how you can be of service and where you can fit with your particular strengths. And I
I
would
love
say the other thing is, you know, one more thing is to just be willing to pay your dues because we do have to pay our dues, right? And say yes. Say yes to as much as you can. Getting involved in groups and organizations, volunteering your time. That's a great way to learn.
That's a great call out. And, you and I are very passionate about women and diversity in technology. So, for all of those that are here now, but considering leaving, how do you
Mm.
recommend that they take ownership of their destiny, that they negotiate that leadership position that you mentioned earlier, that they talk about salary, that they take the risk to fail forward and start their own business? What would your guidance be for those people considering leaving?
Well, um, that's tough because I know that there are a lot of circumstances, that come into play with that. But I would say the biggest thing, that has helped me whenever I've wanted to quit, because that's really what we're talking about, when you want to quit,
Yes.
is what's pulled me out of that is to ask for help.
Mm,
And that's been the hardest thing, by the way, because, for me personally, I've always prided myself on my independence, my ability to figure things out, work things out. But I've learned that when I want to quit, it's time for me to do one of two things, either, or actually both help. One is to ask for help
mm,
and start talking about what it is that I'm trying to solve. Because chances are there's somebody who has a solution for it. If I hold it to myself and I nurse that fear or that concern, then I'm really limiting the ability to find out what the solution might be or to leverage resources that might be right there in front of me. So, sharing and talking about what the problem is can bring about the solution, not in a complaining way, but in a way of, I'm seeking an answer to this. That's one thing. And then the other thing, which sounds really counterintuitive, is help someone else.
mm. I love that. I love that. You find, I do agree. I think personally, giving back actually is so mutually beneficial because you help somebody, but you find joy and something you learn along the way as well, every single time that you help somebody else. So I love that.
Yes. And that's the biggest self esteem builder I know.
I would be remiss to not ask you this question because I know that you're also a mother who did all of these amazing accomplishments while working full time. We talk a lot about work life balance. I like to call it work-life integration. Is it a myth, or what is the idea that you think can help you do it all?
Well, for me, it is being grounded. I have to get grounded because if I am trying to do it all and my thoughts and my emotions and my feelings are all up in the air everywhere, then my life gets really unmanageable. So from the time my kids were little, and I want to say this goes back to like my daughter was born in 95, my son in 97. So I want to say it was right around the early 2000s that I started this practice to where I would get up in the morning before they did. So that meant 5 a.m. because little ones wake up early. And I would take that time to just find myself a quiet, comfortable place, get my coffee, pull out my spiritual books. For me, it was my Bible and some other books that I like to read. And to just spend the next 30 minutes, taking in that information, that really good grounding data that helped me remember what my identity was, my primary self, and to do a little bit of meditation time, just quiet, focused thought. And that really helped me go forward in the day with a measure of serenity. So, like, whatever happened, when they would wake up and it was game on, not only did I have my feet on the ground, but my heart was in the right place too. And it helped me
I
keep
love
it light. It's so easy to get too serious, and I think taking myself and taking life too seriously is gets me in trouble every time. So, starting with that right space, I think was
Mm.
has been key for me, and I still follow those practices, by the way, to this day.
I love that. At 5 a.m. still? Are you still getting up at 5 a.m., Nancy?
I sure
Amazing.
am.
You definitely are my
Yeah,
inspiration.
and now I get to exercise too. Also, is wonderful. I get to. I don't have
Yes,
to like get them ready for school and do all that other stuff. So now I can spend a little more me time.
love that. That is so perfect. That is so needed, I think, for all the moms and women out there and men. Everybody needs self care time, definitely. So, COVID 19 has been
Yes, yes, we got
a
to take care of
long year.
our spiritual selves too.
Oh, definitely. I mean,
Yes.
and that's part of this, right? So everybody's been impacted in unique and different ways. Some people I'm seeing on Facebook now just seeing their family after 15 months now that there's vaccinations, things of that nature.
Well,
Where's the
so
first
cool.
place you want to travel to when you feel safe?
Well, New York, definitely New York City. So my daughter lives there. You know this because we've talked about it before. She lives in Brooklyn, which was
Yes.
your hometown.
Yep.
And part,
I'm born and raised. I love it.
I'm
It's
sorry,
my
Miss. Yeah,
no worries.
yeah. So I'm getting on an airplane to Brooklyn, and we are gonna just go shopping. We're gonna go to a show. I want to just walk the streets. I want to, taste the food. I want to do all that with my daughter, who's basically living, Sex in the City in 2021.
I love it. That sounds perfect. Oh my gosh. I want to crash. I want to crash that party. Sounds amazing.
Oh, please, yes,
And
everybody's welcome.
I would love that. So, if you could step into my shoes and ask yourself anything I missed, what would you ask yourself? What have I missed?
Hmm. Wow. Something light, maybe? Like what I do for fun? Did I freeze? Can
Sure.
you hear me? Michelle.
I can hear you.
Oh, there you
Yes,
are.
I can
Because
hear you.
I got
You look
worried for a second. Okay. Um, maybe just keeping it light. What do you like to do for fun? And I always
that's a
have to talk about this
what
because it's my other great passion in life is horses. I
really?
love horses. I own a horse. By the way, she's a big black mare. She looks exactly like Wonder Woman's horse, so no mistakes. And she's a jumper, and so I spend, every bit of time I can out there riding and training, with her. And I think, again, going back to that balance, that's a part of my balance, being outdoors, being physical, and also getting to love on this beautiful creature who's just so amazing and strong and kind.
I love that. What's your horse's name?
Her name is Baloo, like the bear in the Jungle Book, Baloo.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that. So here's a fun fact. I didn't know about that for you, and you don't know about this for me, but I grew up with horses, even though I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I have two uncles who were obsessed with Clint Eastwood and being a cowboy, and they wanted horses. One opened a horse farm in upstate New York in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It was
Heaven
a
and
little
earth.
his name is Santino Raguso. So you could imagine the shock of the Amish when he moved in to the predominantly Amish neighborhood. Hey, how you doing? You got any grapes? They were not pleased, perhaps some of them. And I have an Uncle Joe, and they each had horses. And so I grew up riding a white Arabian horse named Sultan and a brown horse, and I don't know what breed he was. I'll have to verify, but his name was Charlie Horse, which my uncle was a
Oh,
joker.
that's awesome. That's so
So
cool.
fun. I love that you do that as well. Another
Yeah,
similarity.
I know. We have so much in common.
I love it. So, for anyone listening, how can they connect to you? How can they find you?
Oh, there's so many ways. I want to be contacted, so I make it as easy as possible. So, of course, you can always find me on LinkedIn. Also on Twitter, of course, Nancy underscore Ridge. And my podcast, which is called Culture of Innovation. So I started doing that last year, and it's been amazing. And it's called Culture of Innovation. You can find that on SoundCloud or iTunes. And of course, my website is www.ridgeinnovative.com.
Wonderful. Nancy, you have been an absolute pleasure. You always inspire me every time we talk. I'm so glad you can inspire our audience today. Thank you.
Oh,
You.
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I hope you guys all have a great week and make sure you contact Nancy and tune into her podcast soon. We'll talk again. Have a great week, everyone.